Okay, I think it's live. We'll need to check. I don't know. Okay. Here, we'll pull it up. I'll pull it up on your computer. I mean on your phone. If I can find it. What are we calling it? What's up with the cotton balls?
It's not cotton balls. Nothing. I'm about to use it.
Oh, so leave it where it's at?
Yeah.
Okay. I wish we still had some kindling left. I mean, I guess there's plenty out in the yard. There's no more kindling up in the loft, is there? Well, that's where that 5-gallon bucket of wood scraps came from. No. What time is it? I don't know if anybody will actually be available to show up live. And if they do, and if they don't, I'm not sure whether that will make it easier or harder. No, but I mean, I had some stuff I wanted to go over, so it doesn't matter if they send questions. That was more of a, what?
I just meant that would help.
Yeah. it time? It's time. Okay. I'm gonna wash my hands and get started. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna get started. I will be putting it in the comments that you should start watching this at 7 minutes and 15 seconds. So you don't have to watch 7 minutes of me wandering around my house and listen to my lovely wife doing the dishes. So if anybody shows up live, just put something in the text box to say you're there. I believe that the little icon I'm seeing here says no one's live. That's fine. You don't have to be here for the live discussion in order for us to cover the things that we need to cover, because I will upload this to the Blackboard site. So first off, hello to everyone. You should have all seen me before from the previous time that we did one of these, but just in case you didn't see it, my name is David Gross. I'm the instructor of this class, and I just had a couple of things that I wanted to go over tonight, because sometimes I think it is helpful to hear things discussed, to do things live instead of just reading. So I have a couple of things that I'm going to talk about, and then if anyone has showed up and asked any questions, I will address those questions, and then we'll be done. As I said when I sent out the initial message, this should take probably not more than a half an hour. So let me just look again. There we go. All right. So we're going to talk about, first off, let's talk about the memoir revision, because this is just sort of housekeeping stuff at first. So I had you a couple of weeks ago do an assignment that was to write an entirely new scene for your memoir. So it was going to be the beginning of the various revision exercises that you will do on all 4 of the essays that you're going to be producing for this course. So I asked everyone to write a new scene that was, I believe I said, between 200 and 300 words long, with a goal of 250 words. It was going to be a completely new scene, not a revision of an existing scene, and it would be approximately 80% dialogue. Many of you did not read the instructions. So that's fine. Sometimes that happens. Those of you who did not get full credit on the assignment because you didn't read the instructions, I'm willing to look at new versions of that assignment and correct that grade for you. So I see that there's somebody here now. If you could just let me know who's here, that would be great, and we'll drive on. But as for those memoir revisions, like I said, many of you didn't actually read the assignment, didn't complete the assignment as it was described. So the reason that you did not get full credit, those of you who didn't, wasn't because there was anything wrong with the work you did. It was because you simply didn't do the assignment that I asked for. So go back, read the assignment. I did not make it unavailable. So you can go back into that week, take a look at it, see what it was, and either resubmit it there, or if Blackboard is being silly and won't let you, you can email it to me directly. I'll read it and I will correct that grade. So that was the first thing. The second talking point that I had was after quite a while after the memoir, one of you emailed me and was like, "Oh, I just found the comments that you made on the paper." So I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that after I read and grade your papers, I scan them into a PDF. I write lots of comments. I scan them. I usually either type or handwrite a response paragraph or two, sometimes up to a full page of response, and then I upload that in the comments to your essay. So if you didn't realize I was doing that, please go back and reference those. I put a lot of work into those. That's why it sometimes takes me a little longer than it should to get papers back to you, is because I try to make sure that each of your papers gets the attention that it needs. So if you don't ever see those, then that's not good for me. It's not good for you. So make sure you're reading those, and make sure that you're actually reading what I write. And if you don't understand something that I say, hello. If you don't understand something that I say, let me know. Text me, call me, email me, whatever, and I'll try to explain it. I had at least on the first paper, I had at least one student who actually said, "Hey, I can't read your handwriting." So I typed up for her everything that I had written. I don't mind doing that at all. I just prefer to write, so I generally start with writing, but I have no problem translating things for you. And additionally, those comments they're not only meant to be in reference to that individual sentence. Often if there's something systemic that's going on, so if every other sentence you're changing from the past tense to the present tense, I will only make comments on that for a page, and then I ignore it from there on out. So make sure you read the comments and then apply them to all of your writing. Okay. So there was that. All right. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the workshops. So we've done 2 workshops now, and the first workshop was fairly typical of first workshops for this course. In the past, the first workshop's always been kind of rough, just in that people don't know how to interact with each other in this venue, because it's not a very good venue, and they haven't done it before. They don't know what my expectations are, etc. So the first workshop that we did was exactly what I expected it to be. And then as it always is, I sort of made comments like, "Hey guys, you need to step up your game." For the second workshop, that really didn't happen. The game stepping up didn't really happen. Now, if that had only been one group that had not done what I was going for in the workshop, then I would blame it on that group. But when all of the groups do it, I blame it on me. So there was clearly some sort of communication issue that I didn't communicate clearly on what I was going to do. So I've been really brainstorming, thinking quite a lot about how I want to do this third workshop in a way that will get you the most best feedback that you can get from your peers. And we're going to change it completely. Instead of doing a discussion board where I say generally, because this is what I've said, is that it's 25 points for the discussion board, and you can basically think of one comment as 1 point. That was what I was planning on. Most of you, for the whole forum discussion for the last paper, only made 5 or 6 comments. So if I had stuck by my guns on that, almost everyone would have failed. But like I said, if everyone fails, it's not the students who failed, it's the instructor who failed. So I didn't grade it that way. I revised the grade. Basically, I curved it by like 20 points. Excuse me. So what we're going to do this time is, instead of there being a discussion board, we're going to do a wiki. I have written out extensive instructions for for how to conduct the wiki. But basically what it's going to be is when you log into your groups, you're going to see a page that says Group Wiki. When you click on it, you'll see 5 pages to that wiki. One will be a copy of the instructions for how to go about the workshop. And then the other 4 will have the first and last name of one student each. Welcome back. We'll have the first and last name of one student each, and that will be their page. When you click on your page, you will see something that says basically something to the effect of post your essay here. So, excuse me. I'm sorry, after you click edit the wiki, you'll click edit the wiki, then you'll see something that says post your essay here. Click on there, get yourself the blinking cursor like you're in Microsoft Word, like you're going to be typing, and then click the button that looks like a paperclip. Find your essay on your computer and upload it, and then click submit. You will see that go into the wiki. You save the wiki, and then you will see that page has a blue link to your essay that you have uploaded, and below it you will see that I have uploaded a series of questions. So the way we're going to do this is you can each go into each other's pages and edit their pages. Please don't delete their essay off their page or delete anyone else's stuff. All you're going to do is add. You're not going to delete. So you'll see the questions that I've listed, and they're questions that I've given you before. So you've seen those. It'll be the same set of questions. You will simply type an answer to the question below the question, and then after you type it, you'll put a couple of dashes and then your name, and then you'll go on to the next one. Answer all those questions for all of your peers, and then if you don't want to have a discussion, you don't have to have a discussion. You just have to answer the questions. If you do want to have follow-on discussion to anyone's answers, just insert a new line, hit reply, and type out the response. So what this does is it allows those of you who are a bit shy about having the actual content discussions, because I noticed there was a fair amount of discussion going on about the actual event in people's lives, but not a lot of discussion going on about the writing process and the writing product. So if you want to have a discussion, you're welcome to, but this will get you the feedback from your peers that you need while still allowing those of you who are somewhat shy about communicating in that manner, in that venue, to avoid having to do it free form, the way that the first 2 workshops worked. So I'm hoping that will produce good results for everyone. If it doesn't, then depending on why it appears not to, we might go back to the other format. But I want to try this time because ever since the first time I taught this course, I've been sort of racking my brain on how to make these workshops work a little better. Because when they're done properly, they are super, super useful. I took this course and the graduate level version of this course in a classroom when I was a student, and the workshops are super useful. You'll have some peer who just really has like a window into what was going on in your brain when you wrote the essay, and you might not even realize what you were trying to write, and they'll be like, oh, I see what you were doing. It was this. And then they say it and you're like, oh, wow. And you suddenly know how to go back and tie the whole thing together and turn it into something that's so much better than what you could have produced without that feedback. And an instructor doesn't have the time to do that. An instructor, if he or she is lucky, might successfully provide that kind of feedback to 1 or 2 papers per assignment. So hopefully that'll work better. Lydia, did my explanation of sort of what we're thinking there, did that make sense? I know there's lag, so I'm going to keep talking. Yeah, it did. Okay, good. And beyond this YouTube video, I'm also going to have a digital explanation. So when you're doing it, you don't have to go back and try to scroll through the video to find, the part where I made that explanation. Okay. So that was the downer part of the workshop. I was saying, hey, the forum discussion didn't really go quite the way I wanted it to. The upshot is your workshop letters on this last forum, all of you. Like literally, every workshop letter that I read was just great, just fantastic. So it's like everything that you didn't do in the forums, you put into your workshop letters, and they were really, I thought, useful, and they were well considered. They were thoughtful. They addressed issues without being a jerk about it, which I at least find difficult. And they were really, really good. So keep doing what you're doing on the workshop letters. Just a reminder to everyone, those are worth as many points. The letters and the workshop itself together are worth as many points as the paper. At least this first version of the paper. So, okay, just one little thing I noticed. Lots of you have been putting titles on your essays. Essays need titles, so please do that. Formatting, I'm not super worried about formatting. Your essay needs to make sense in the way I read it. But I've noticed that in your discussions, some of you have been like, "Oh, be careful with the MLA." Well, as long as I can figure out what's going on and it has page numbers so that I don't lose pages and I know who wrote it, and it's in a font that lets me know that you're not trying to make me think a 2-page essay is a 5-page essay. Just so you know, everyone's doing fine on the formatting. I'm not too worried about that. Okay. I know that we've only got 2 essays complete and everyone is drafting their 3rd essay right now. But at the end of this semester, there is going to be a portfolio that is due. And that portfolio is going to involve revisions of all 4 of the essays. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the portfolio is going to look like now so that those of you who are somewhat proactive can actually start working on this. The various exercises that I provide are all meant to get you started on this process, so you should be a ways along. But basically, the papers that you bring to the workshop drafts of the paper, I don't call them rough drafts because they shouldn't be rough, but they should be, prone to revision afterwards. But the workshop drafts will be revised into a final version that will be submitted in a portfolio that will have all 4 papers, and it will have 3 separate documents for each paper. So there will be a total of 12 documents. So the 3 documents are going to be a cover letter, which is going to be approximately 1 page, written basically the way that you have been writing your workshop letters, except it's going to not be about someone else's paper and about how you think they should perform revision. Instead, it's going to be about your paper and what your process of drafting the paper, of revising the paper, of workshopping the paper looked like, what your goals were with the paper, what you hoped to achieve, whether you think you achieved them, why not, etc. So each of the papers will have that 1-page cover letter for it. And then you will have your original workshop draft of the paper. And then you will have the final draft of the paper. And the final draft of the paper it needs to, this is the big thing that gets people, because this is not an edited paper. This is a revised paper. 25% of the content should be new content in the paper, which means for many of you who were really pushing the length requirement, that means 25% of the content that was currently in the essay needs to go away as well. So you're going to have to make some decisions. You're going to have to tighten the writing. You're going to have to refine it. You're going to have to look at the weak parts of the paper that have been pointed out by me and your peers, and that you might have found by rereading it. And these papers will evolve. And then, so you're doing that on all of them. And that's the reason I wanted to talk to you about it right now, is so that you know to start working on it. Because if you try to revise those papers in the last week of the semester when you're planning for finals, you will not do a good job. You will not be pleased with your work. I will not be pleased with your work. And you or somebody spending a fair amount of money on this class, you should probably get out of it what is being offered. So that's important. Now, taking into account, there's currently 19 people in the class. They're going to be submitting four
5 to 7 page papers each that I have to read during finals week, I need the modified portions of the paper underlined in the paper. So any new material that you're going to write is going to need to all be underlined so that I can quickly identify it. Say again? That's a good question. So the portfolio is going to be due on the 14th of May. Yeah. So we'll also have a 14-day-old baby in the house unless he comes early during that week. So, do me a favor and underline the new material. I will still try to read the whole essays. I will, because otherwise I won't be able to get a feel for things. But I will give my closest attention to the new material and to the portions that are marked as having been significantly revised. So any questions on that? And did that make sense? Okay. So I only had, Lydia, did you have any questions or comments that you wanted to bring up? I have one more thing that I wanted to go over. So no questions there about the portfolio. What about just any questions? You showed up for a reason. You might just be a super conscientious student, or you might be bored, or you might have something you wanted to discuss. And so while I wait for that answer, I actually had two more things I wanted to go over. So one of them was I submitted midterm grades today. So you should be seeing those soon. The grades for the class were not as high as I would have hoped. And I was kind of surprised because some of the students that the grades weren't as high as I thought, I went back and looked at their papers and I was like, well, those are A papers. Okay. So Lydia said that she was only going to ask some questions about the workshops, but since I'm changing the workshops, I answered the question. So I went back and looked at everybody's grades to try to figure out, like, why are these grades not as high as I would have hoped? And here's the thing. When you add up all the side tasks, the exercises and crafts, and the journals and stuff like that, those really add up to being a fairly significant portion of the class. So let me encourage you to, when you see your grade, if you're not happy with where it's at, to take that into account for the rest of the semester and to actually do the assignments. That said, as a bit of, so the midterm grade, I guess you could call that the stick. Here's the carrot. All of the assignments are currently available on Blackboard. I've got them all available. And if for some reason you can't find one that you didn't do, but you remember what it was and you didn't do it, and you submit it to me this week, I will accept all assignments that I can accept. I mean, if you skipped a workshop, I'm sorry, there's no way I can fix that for you because I can't make the rest of your peers do a workshop with you. But if it's a journal assignment that you didn't do, go back, look at the reading from that week, write a journal about it, get those points back. They will add up. So I'm basically extending an amnesty period through Sunday night of this weekend, of this week. So it's only, it's a 1 week amnesty period. But if anyone's like, oh, wow, I didn't want that C-, I feel like it should be a B, go back and do the work and pull the grade up, and then, do the work in the future. I feel like that's fair. I don't know what else I can do to help you on that because that's really where it's an issue. Not for this week because you're writing your paper. Lydia said, unrelated to anything we've talked about so far, I was wondering if we have reading assigned this week or not. I didn't see any, but I know we have a journal, so I wanted to make sure. Yeah, okay, so here's the reason I gave you a journal. There, you can go back and you can write about some of the readings from the last couple of weeks before spring break, because there was that 1-2 week period where there was a huge reading selection. You can write about that, or you could do basically an initial version of your cover letter for the personal cultural criticism. So you could write your journal for this week, just discussing what it was like to write the personal cultural criticism. When it comes to the actual portfolio submission, I would not want you to just copy and paste that into it, but you could certainly, you'd be at least a third of the way through. You'd have written about the initial draft. You might not have written about workshopping and revising, but you'd at least have gotten the part done that gets you started. Does that make sense? As for why I didn't assign reading this week, it's because I want you to focus on writing. I want you to focus on writing this essay. Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is more, everything else has been more admin. I want to talk about the craft of writing just a little bit. I've noticed a lot of students, and this is a common thing, especially since this is a 200 level class and many of you are writing outside of your majors. A lot of you have a tendency to tell your story as if you were telling someone else's story. So there won't be a lot of description. There won't be a lot of like direct relation of conversations. It'll be more like this thing happened and then this thing happened and then this thing happened. And that's okay for getting started. But remember, this is a creative class. So we are wanting to apply the principles, the same principles that we love in the great fiction that we interact with, to the telling of our own stories. And so that doesn't mean making things up, but it means applying art to the relation of facts. So, some of the stuff that you're going to see in a good short story, like if you were to go buy a copy of the New Yorker and, scroll 2/3 of the way to the back, and there's almost always going to be a short story, you're going to see people having conversations. And so there will be dialogue taking place. You're going to see evocative descriptions, especially of like scenes where a good portion of the action takes place. So, for instance, if you tell a whole memoir that takes place in a used bookstore, and when the memoir is done, I don't know what the used bookstore looks like, that's an issue. If I wanted to write a memoir about the process of building this house that I'm sitting in, and at the end of reading the memoir, you don't realize that there's a loft, that's an issue. And it means I didn't do my job in explaining what was going on in describing. If I relate a story of a fight that I have with someone, and you don't know by the end of it whether that fight is something that's characteristic of me or characteristic of that person or something that isn't, then you don't really understand what happened. So, there's various different tools that writers use. We've gone over a couple of them in this semester. We're going to go over some more. For instance, next week, we're going to have a whole lesson just on describing people. And I'm going to try to just sort of to mix things up, because, usually I just sort of write stuff and I'm like, hey, read this. I'm going to try to start putting in some more conversations, and also maybe bounce around the internet and see if I can find some interesting videos that describe the same things we want to talk about. But just as you're drafting your papers, make sure to think back about the things that we've gone over in class, about describing people or dialogue, how it works, stuff like that, and definitely try to make sure to apply those principles to the course. So it's been 30 minutes. That's all the material that I wanted to cover. Lydia, did you have any other questions or comments that you wanted to make? I can read them off for the class. While you're getting ready to answer that, one last thing is I did add for this week. It should be in there already, and I'll check and make sure it is. If it's not, I'll turn it on. But I basically added a 1-question quiz that says, "Did I go watch the live stream?" And so that's the same as like your exercise and craft for the week. It's worth 5 points just to click yes on that. So make sure after you watch this that you go do that so you get those points. So, all right, great. Well, that's all I have. And like I said, I think I'm going to try to do this a couple more times during the semester. I hope it's useful, and have a good evening.